You know, branding's good. It may not be the best branding, but what's the saying? No, like,
no publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah, exactly. There's no bad publicity. Yep. Exactly.
I like this to the players. A bon chance from Caleb from DisK. They're just different languages for the same thing. It's great. Good times.
Multicultural in StarCraft, aren't we?
Yeah, multicultural. Especially in North America, because you do get to play on so many different countries.
Yeah, well, honestly, without StarCraft and like casting StarCraft, I probably just like wouldn't. I'd be the same ignorant American that most Europeans believe us to be.
Probably.
Probably. Let's do the introductions for at least this first game. The top left.
Oh, we have to.
As the Red Protoss, it is DisK.
That's right. Not the floppy kind, the hard kind. You know what I'm saying, chat? And the bottom right, in the blue, this is CalebAracous. Currently on, was it Icy?
Icebound? Icebound Esports.
I think the Ultralisk, is that an Ultralisk? Oh, it's a Roach. The head thing next to the hatchery. That's a Roach, pretty sure. Looks cool.
It does look cool. But yeah, I think it's a Roach as well. Although I did have, I feel like I brought this up before and chat had a heck of good conversation based around it. So,
heck of good.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways. Have you read many books there, Maynard?
I dropped into your book club and mentioned that I've primarily been reading Warhammer novels lately. I feel like I'm missing out on some of the big sagas that a lot of people have read. I've read some of the huge ones. My favorite series of all time is the first six books of Dune. I'm very much into that series a lot. Nothing's really been trumped as far as I'm more of a sci-fi person rather than a fantasy person. And Warhammer. I also love cosmic horror, like H.P. Lovecraft, that sort of thing. I've been reading the H.P. Lovecraft Necronomicon. That's the kind of the paperback that I've been reading lately. But as far as reading like big books goes, I have a Kindle for that, and I've been reading. I'm on like book 30-something of the Horus Heresy, which is a huge saga of Warhammer 40k, like pre-modern age historical books. And they have one particular author, like a bunch of different authors contribute to this saga, but my favorite is Dan Abnett by far. He's done he's the most he writes like the first few, and it gets you into it with his incredible writing, and he's like the most what do you call it, like accessible author for people that are new to that lore, that universe.
Right.
He's very good at painting that picture in your mind when you imagine things in your brain of what it's going to look like, which I think Tolkien was really good at as well. By the way, like I read when I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings as a kid, like I'm talking like 12, 13 years old, and then the movie came out in 2001. I'm like, this is exactly what I thought the show looked like.
Nice.
That's how good of a job the author did. This is a very old school opening from DisK, by the way. He's gone Stalker first, and then getting a Void Ray out.
Yeah, he did actually start with a Phoenix for like half of its production time before deciding, no, I don't want a Phoenix, I want a Void Ray. So I wonder what was happening in his brain there.
Yeah. Also, like back in the day with the Stargate opening, you would open a Void Ray to get rid of Overlords, because they do get rid of Overlords pretty quickly, but it kind of feels like maybe he's just expecting Caleb to go for a Roach bust blindly or something like that. But
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. This is a very weird opening.
I'm with you. Like, whenever I see a Void Ray, nowadays, in the last, like, few years, basically, I've always just considered that it's a safety opener against some of the earlier pushes, as it is more dependable against two different types of openers than, like, an Oracle would only be good against Lings, and then a Phoenix will not really help until it has more Phoenix buddies with it, right? But I know there were some pushes based around like having two Voiders with it too, but that is like seriously old school. So I mean, he's actually getting two Void Rays. He will be denying vision for certain. He'll be very safe against Roaches. I mean, even later on, having two Void Rays overcharge will help you even if you're like protecting the third base against a tide of Roaches. And he's going into Robotics Bay.
I think DisK's going to be making Disruptors in a minute.
I'm curious because Colossus kind of have been making their way back into StarCraft in general.
Yeah, that's
I think it started with PvT and then PvZ, and I've even seen a couple of builds in PvP. So but I'm not 100% sure. This is actually just with the void rays taking up so many minerals and gas. Like whenever as someone who plays Protoss occasionally, I'm like, a void ray is a good thing, and I try to make one, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so expensive. What the hell?
Well, I didn't realize I was buying Trump Tower. It is going to be Colossus. You're right.
There you go. It's such an expensive opener. It's like so much of Legacy of the Void had to do with like Protoss now being able to like mass units, or well, not really, but the point is like gateway units now became dependable. But
yeah.
It's like this is like old school. Like if I just make void rays and Colossus, they'll be too good for you to actually overwhelm me, which doesn't actually work out that much anymore. So you're gonna see DisK have a very small army. But if he's allowed to build up on it, it's going to take longer than building Blink Stalkers or Charge Lots or whatever. It is going to be a very scary army.
It is. Like, I mean, you look at DisK's opening and you think, oh, I just go Hydras, right? And then you're going to be faced with a bunch of laser giraffes that will most for your Hydras like in the hot knife through butter. So, yeah. On paper, it seems very, very cool. And this is another series back-to-back along with Roughs where we're seeing some stuff that we don't see in actual, like, other StarCraft games in your regular quote-unquote metagames. Like, you know, even the EU bracket earlier today, for all of you guys out there, would have been featuring a lot more standard play. For sure. Like, the Europeans players, there are a couple 300 IQ European players out there, but there are also mostly the really, really good ones, the consistent ones with consistent results, generally consistently played normal. Or what I believe of normal is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Fun region.
I mean, Europe might have the razzle dazzle of a pristine game, right? That was a great build order. That was great micro. But the NA is the razzle dazzle of like a circus. Okay, so still really great to watch. But you do get more. You get weirder plays. You get weirder decision making. I would say as well, to lead into weirder games, and we're seeing a lot of that. So. This plan is formulating here. You know, we have the very classic, you're protecting your Colossus with the Sentry force fields. I feel like a big reason why this changed was that generally people got better at StarCraft, so more units were popping out faster, but then also Corrosive Biles existed, so force fields could never save your Colossus nearly as well as they could in the previous expansions. But Caleb is actually not doing anything aggressive, so he did get sight on the robotics bay. And I know these guys probably face each other a lot. They actually were on a team together. Obviously, they're friendly with each other. They probably face each other on ladder. Maybe Caleb has a style he likes to do against DisK and vice versa. Don't know. But he's not being aggressive, despite knowing that it's like fairly fast Colossus. And in fact, is actually just getting the whole entire Zerg book of stuff. Everything's coming down here.
Yeah, he basically checked the F12 menu, looked at the tech tree, and went, huh, I haven't got that yet.
Yeah.
Better get it. Yeah, I mean, going for Hive, Lurker Den's going down, Nida Swim's going down. Why not get an Ultra Cavern and a Greater Spire as well? I mean, hell. It's just WCS NA Challenger.
I'm a little surprised I haven't seen a Spire put down with the Hive. Like, clearly they both are letting each other get to a macro point. DisK more so. Like, there are... I mean, actually, on a map like this, too. My mom's currently showing me something. Okay.
Hi, ZombieGrub.
Maynard says hi. She's showing me a hat that she knitted for the baby my sister's gonna have. Or sister-in-law.
Oh.
It's cute.
Can she make a bigger hat for man babies like me?
Can you make a bigger hat for Maynard?
I like dread beanies. Big woolly knitted ones are my favorite.
Okay.
Something that's a bit open weave so my head can breathe.
This can be open weave. It's got a cow on it, or a zebra actually. It's got a zebra on it.
I like zebras. If you want to make like a leopard one or a zebra one for my head that has plenty of space for my dreads, like a big droopy beanie, it's my jam.
My mom wants to make you one.
Oh, I'd love to receive it.
Great, it's gonna happen.
I'll wear it proudly.
Oh god, what were we talking? She was so excited about this. Usually she's very like, like, oh, you're casting Nevermind, but she was like, no, here, look at it, take it, look at it.
It's like, drop what you're doing and listen to me.
She's very excited to have a grandson. Anyways, I don't remember what I was talking about, but there's an attack happening, so.
There is. This attack's not too scary at all for Caleb, for DisK rather. So Caleb, the power of the Nida Swim here is that he can just bounce between the top part of the map and the lower part of the map. And when the Nida Swim is used like this, it gets me all wiggly and jiggly. I love when people use the Nida Swim to retreat and to just attack different parts of the map. Feels like this was the intention for Blizzard when they made the changes to the Nida Swim. He doesn't actually retreat through the worm, he actually walks home. It's a little bit less exciting, but...
Yeah. Well, maybe later. I agree. I think it was used more as a transportation. That's what they would kind of talk about, but and this isn't a good example of a game with it, but there definitely are concerns, I think, still from Protoss players who have faced stronger mid-game Zergs who really abuse it. As the whole armor nerf really only drastically affected the all-in version. But if you just place it everywhere on the map, you're not always guaranteed to have a zealot find it, right? And still a very rapid response time. Armies just suddenly on the north side, suddenly on the south side.
Speaking of rapidity, or I guess the speed variety, there is adaptive talents done for these lurkers, so they can burrow and actually chase Protoss units down. And with those Vipers as well, this is actually a surprisingly scary force that Caleb's got here, engaging into DisK's army, pulling those units into the lurker spines. Now, there is so much gateway units left over. He goes for the aggressive flank, storms as well, softening things up. He nearly loses his High Templar, saves them turning into Archons. And it turns out there's just too much gateway here for Caleb to deal with, and he actually loses everything that was worth money in his army. Now he's just on roaches.
Yeah, that was quite an awkward fight, right? The Vipers actually were able to do something because the High Templars were lagging behind, so it seemed like initially it might go okay for the Zerg, and then, well, there just was actually too great of a concave, maybe not enough lurkers, and the lurkers are actually taken out. So despite the attempts of the Blinding Cloud and taking out the splash units, there's a couple of disruptor shots that actually could have been even a bigger game changer. Some of that maybe had to do with Caleb's army being over here. There was a decent 30 supply, I want to say, of roaches defending against the harassment that maybe could have been protecting those lurkers. And now with DTs harassing as soon as he drags his army forward.
Oh, that's going to be a dead base, and Caleb's going to be knocked down to 4 hatcheries, which is never a comfortable situation for the Zerg when you're up against 5 base Protoss, and you've been taking bad engagements. The game's starting to spiral out of control here for Caleb.
Yeah.
He's actually losing some expensive units here in the natural, but the defensive DTs are here. There's no Overseer with the Zerg army, so he's getting pushed back. Big attack from the Zerg to the south.
Oh yeah, DisK is, he definitely had this under control. He just misclick, same hotkey. I don't know what that was. He didn't have to give up the position on that high ground. The Caleb does take advantage of it, takes the Nexus and runs away. And, the Zerg player does have a big bank. So while it looks pretty deadly to lose that base and have your opponent be on the same bases as the Zerg, and that does suck, it's something where he could easily even triple expand here. Very quickly recover and get things under control again, because DisK isn't actually too eager to move out. He should move out, I think, but there's been a lot of cautious play here from DisK. It's been 13 minutes, really. Finally, he feels comfortable pushing into Caleb's side of the map onto that creep, and I think that he will find a lot of success with it. I think it's actually pretty good.
With you. He's got +3 attack here. He's got a lot of splash damage. The lurkers are the scary thing. And honestly, I mean, the Oracle comes in for the tag, and that's great, but does he still want to engage into this? It's a little dicey. He could take a bad fight. I don't know. Actually, I haven't played enough to know what this feels like, whether or not the Protoss would win this engagement.
I feel like the Protoss would win. It's not as many Immortals as maybe you would like against they're chunky, they have the shield, they'd really be able to be on the front lines there, but it is still a pretty powerful Protoss army, and that's not actually that intimidating of a lurker count. 9 is a good count, but they're concaved on. If there's a lot of splash, there's no sack defense. I actually give that one to DisK, but he also is in agreement with you, so he's like, I don't know about this. I want to catch them while they're not burrowed at the very least initially. Though with speed, it's are lurkers ever not burrowed?
Yeah, right. Yoinks one of those Colossi and gets that for free, or I guess at the expense of a little bit of Viper energy. Or if it comes in for another tag, doesn't live to tell the tale though. It'll be its last tag in this game. I agree with you. There seems like so much punch in this Protoss army with its upgrades and everything. The Vipers are what scares me here if I was the Protoss. Having my big Colossi yoinked, having a High Templar yoinked, or even just a Blinding Cloud in the final engagement while your Stalkers are just herpa-derping on top of lurkers.
I think the reason I give it so much to the Protoss army, besides my inherent bias, is that the Zerg is still actually on, there was a decent number of roaches that were in there, which really just don't look impressive as the game goes on. I'm glad they are being used. They're being sacrificed to try and kill the space. It didn't really work out, though. And that it is also still, a lot of Hydras, which, again, aren't the most intimidating thing. If this was, a Lurker Broodlord Viper army, oh, yeah, definitely, okay, be very, very careful with that one, but there's a lot of army here that's going to get instantly melted to really anything that touches it. And then it will just be the lurkers, and just lurkers, assuming that the feedback's go down on the Vipers, right? aren't as intimidating. So, but it's all about the caution here. He's not going to push in. He is going to push in. No. See?
I think DisK is intending to get Tempests here, but he's maxed, so he needs to get rid of some units to be able to do that. One Colossus gets pulled out of there, and he does have a bit more supply to work on it, but he keeps making DTs. He did get a couple Stargates, and a Fleet Bacon is sizzling back in the main base for him, but it's not really being utilized right now, and it feels like that's like the way of really dealing with lurkers and not having a whole lot to worry about except for the Vipers, I guess. But even then, like, Tempests are really good against Vipers too. Gets one in there.
If you can keep it out of range, kind of protect them with your High Templars too, like, it's the balancing act. Yeah, exactly, which, glad you brought it up, because it's very important. The Oracle tag is no longer here. You missed it anyways as it died, missed the Lurkers, and then the Observers just died. They actually have speed, which is sometimes, like, it seems like an actual, like, bad upgrade to get.
Yeah, because it just face plants into Hydras.
So he doesn't have detection. He has to run away if the Lurkers ever jump on top of him. And as such, he's bleeding.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, bleeding units here.
And that's, I mean, there is actually, like, we were just talking about the Tempest being something that would be good for him. It feels like they're about to become necessary. 5 Broodlords are about to finish here for Caleb, and Broodlords absolutely dumpster this army of DisK if he gets enough of them. Like, there's not a whole lot that shoots up here. He does have Blink Stalkers. They do have +3 attack, and that's one way of dealing with them. And, of course, Archons can as well, but they need to get through the Broodlings first to get on top of those Broodlords. And Caleb still has a pretty hefty ground army of 12 Roaches, 7 Lurkers, and 13 Hydralisks that he has to get through to get to those Broodlords as well. So Mama's coming, and while Mama is always good to have with her babies, I would love to see some Tempest here for DisK. He's going to need them real bad soon.
Yeah, I think it's a natural transition, and I think that they both are getting to that super late game PvZ. Again, Caleb maybe still a little too many Roaches, 12. Actually, a lot of them being used defensively, so they are just like kind of like soaking up supply. But adding in those Broodlords, maybe adding in more Lurkers, but actually getting a very big army, expensive army too, getting caught and just absolutely massacred as he's setting the rest of them up in the top position, hoping to maybe attack into the natural, but then decides, no, okay, I gotta go back and defend those Broodlords, gotta go back to defend this base, but now he's gonna be in an awkward position where maybe his Broodlords could be pounced upon by the Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, the Broods are a little exposed here. The ground army of the Zerg needs to come and get in front of them. Like I said, that on their own, they're not so great. You need to have that ground army of the Roaches, the Hydras, the Lurkers in front of them to keep them safe. The Viper's also coming back. Oh, might be able to get a couple Colossi here. That'd be a nice pick off. They're very expensive.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, they really can't hold the line by themselves, so that will continue to be pressured, as DisK also doesn't have a lot of supply to warp in units defensively.
Oh, another hatchery taking a bit of a licking here from a big charge lot and DT warp in. And speaking of the hatcheries going down, the economy of Caleb is looking a little bit worse for wear at the moment. He's down as 50-odd drones, not that many hatcheries to mine off. He's got a fresh one finishing at the front, which is actually just only a third of the way done. He gets into the main base here with a bunch of Hydras. He's doing a fair bit of damage, but, oh, they're too thick.
Yeah,
and they're chonkers. They're heckin' chonkers. Lord, they coming.
And they're taking forever. Like, it's taken the entire army forever to respond to this, and that is the real important thing. It's the entire army responding to this. DisK not splitting his army. Not that he was really capable of, I suppose, doing so, because it would have gone up against a Broodlord and Hydra army, and he has nothing in it that really reliably deals with those Broodlords. So I guess no matter what had happened, he was going to lose that base. It just sucks it took so long to clean up. It was only like 15 units there. Meanwhile, he does grab the third base. That's great. Doesn't actually get the damage done on the main. They both are really digging each other's probe counts, drone counts. This space actually going to be denied by a single DT. It's getting a little scrappy.
Yeah, this game's getting dirty. It's become a mud. It was a boxing match, but then they started throwing the gloves off and start getting like bats and folded up chairs from the crowd. And it's become a real brawl here. I don't know how the referee let that happen, but here we are. My dog's disgusted by how this game turned out, by the way. He can't handle it. Got to grab that mama shit, pull her into the party. There we go.
Yeah, a bit late on pulling her back, but I think she was dead no matter what.
Yeah.
This is
a little too quick for it.
This is feeling like a DisK momentum game. Like, DisK is getting more harassment done. Has cut off a lot of the actual mining bases since it's not mining right now, and does now have the bigger army, as Caleb doesn't have enough gas. He's just put into 6 infestors, which is a good thing to do. It's just now that he can't really reinforce with anything else. This is all gonna come down to one fight that DisK could at least partially refill his army with, and Caleb really can't.
I like the infestors for like blanketing a whole bunch of infested Terrans down, but I don't like them for anything else. Like Neural isn't going to work here, I don't think. Maybe on a mothership, but it's not here anymore. Ooh, feedback on the Viper, very nice.
He doesn't even have Neural Parasites, so...
No.
I'm also kind of like, our infestors really going to help out right now.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a few more air units, I like them for infested Terrans, like just burrowing and spamming them out.
Oh, we only have one High Templar.
Oopsie daisies.
Might not matter. Might not even need storms. Just blinking right onto that Broodlord army with the help of the Tempest means it goes down pretty damn fast.
Uses that energy for some fungals here. The Infestor's not really helping out a ton. The damage on the fungal is really quite mitigated by the fact that most of the things they're fungaling have 1,000 hit points. And that's going to be GG. DisK's army steamrolling through the defensive line of DisK there, and he gets game number 1.
Yeah, it took 21 minutes. And it was a little scrappy towards the end there, but it was well played by DisK. I just feel like how often does he get away with that opening, right? Like he was on so few units, and Caleb was just like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Let's macro. Which I don't know, I think a lot of Zergs are naturally afraid of that super late game army.
Yeah. I mean, there are some Zergs out there that want to get there on purpose because they feel like they're late. I mean, Snoot is another guy that whenever I see him or whenever we talk about the game and balance, that's the thing. It's been a while. Like I haven't seen him since Valencia, but he always talks about how he's just felt like the Zerg's late game army's been the best for like an expansion. Like that long. He really feels. But that said, though, he is a Zerg that did love that late game and truly felt that that was the strongest part for his race. And he would go. He used to be that guy that popularized the fast hive and that sort of thing for European Zergs.
Yeah.
And obviously your Serals, that sort of thing. Seral is going to be more than happy to play the late game.
Mm-hmm. That is true. There are definitely really great Zergs who like do just say like, yeah, let's bring it to the late game. But then on that, I feel like, and maybe Caleb is one of those guys who's like, yeah, late game Zerg's awesome. You know, I just maybe have trouble getting there. I think that would have been one of the problems I would have pointed out, because they both had like agreed to go to 4 bases, and then Caleb went to a hive, and DisK took time to get to like his tier 3, or by tier 3 I mean Stargate and Fleet Beacon, but I feel like they could have done that so much faster. Like Caleb could have gotten to mass Broodlord, Viper, Lurker, if that's like his ultimate goal, like so much faster. And had like that is his literal army. Instead, he played a lot around that Roach Hydra, which was fun to watch it, like trying to go to Nidus rooms and stuff, but obviously ultimately like failed out more. He was the one that lost that game. So I don't know if they approach it the same way. Again, these guys probably play each other a lot, so this might just be how their games look. But I would actually say it's a little more on Caleb to mix things up. And I guess he is mixing things up. He's going for that spawning pool first. So there you go. On the top left, it is Caleb.
Yeah, full first here. Going to be scouted by this man's probe in the bottom right. The one whose units shot the lasers. It is Psystorm's DisK. Now, DisK actually managed to make it all the way into the winter qualifying, or actually into WCS winter proper in the group stages. I believe he went down to my boy Probe, but put on a good showing in that tournament. And I actually really liked winter in general as a tournament. I thought it was very, very cool. I'd love to see another shot at winter with maybe a few changes here and there, like something like that.
Yeah. Well, if we're gonna go into like, if they could ever like put more money into it, because I'm not talking about like if we have unlimited money, but I'm like, if we had like a little bit more money that could go into production, I would love if they would do something different to market as a non-challenger broadcast, right? I think that was the biggest weakness of it, was that it's great. We're great casters, thank you very much, and all that stuff, but it looks exactly like a lot of the other broadcasts that happen there. So that was...
just make it a bit different, you mean? Like just...
yeah,
because we are going to have a challenger in the same studio, and it is going to look exactly the same. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I feel like even just changing up the camera angle could be a big difference. Like they have the studio, but of course they would have to deconstruct and reconstruct things. So I understand it's still like manpower and hours to put in.
Yeah.
But
all woman power. It's 2019.
Exactly. It's not men at work. It's men and women at work. Thank you. Thank you very
exactly. Much. That band needs to rebrand to be more, a bit more modern.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be my one wish, because I think, I mean, if as far as like, you know, we're talking about doom and gloom with StarCraft, I actually think that it's just like so much more reasonable to say like, you know what, next year they might actually just be like mostly like winter. It's going to be in the studio, and it'd be really
I
great.
kind of feel that's going to be the case. If not next year, maybe the year after. I feel like, but I'm not actually super upset by that, because I actually think those broadcasts, when they're on, they're really good, and they are super inexpensive for Blizzard to run versus a giant stage show. As much as I love giant crowds and stage shows, and I think we could get some pretty sick crowds in some towns for StarCraft 2, and it is always nice to see. But you know, we would rather it exist than not exist. If that's the way it's going to go, then that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like you can maybe start doing things with it too, if it was going to be so consistent. Or like maybe you could include a crowd, which they wanted to do. It didn't really end up panning out. So, but yeah, changing some things up would be great.
I don't know if you watched any GSL because it was on a really bad time for you.
I did.
But you did. But I made a tweet about it, but God, the audio balancing for GSL was just incredible. No one was really talking about it because a lot of people are just more care about the games and the visuals and stuff. But just as a guy that is a part of productions, listens to a lot of productions, was into music for a long time as well and producing music, the audio balancing was perfect. Like the crowd cheering and gasping anytime something went crazy, or even a small thing like losing an Immortal or a Warp Prism that actually didn't matter that much, but the crowd was getting into it. That stuff builds so much hype when you're spectating a game, just even from home on Twitch.
I 100% agree, and I do believe it has, like, what's really nice is that the Korean crowd is, like, one of the cooler crowds for getting those moments. Like, I feel like it's a very Korean thing when I'm in that studio to be like it's like take that audio and put it into, like, a horror film and it sound like not out of place. But yeah, and it's great that they can actually catch that.
Yeah, but it's like the amazing thing is that they did that without, without giving up any of the quality of the English broadcast. Like you could kind of hear the Korean commentators, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as, say, the GSL versus the World, where the Korean commentators were overwhelming most things in the crowd if you were trying to listen to the English broadcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the Freaka Studio, they managed to pump out a ton. Speaking of a ton, that's a lot of gateways coming down here for young DisK. I think we might be having a attack very shortly here from our Protoss friend.
It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's going to have a Colossus in it. With a Warp Prism and speed, I think.
Yeah, it's a
this is going to...
Disruptor drop, and I guess like type of all-in. We're going to actually witness it, I guess, in maybe like a minute here, but, finish your thought about the sound balancing.
Oh, basically just reiterating what I said, where I just thought that it adds so much, and a lot of tournaments don't put it as a priority. And I think it adds a lot to a spectator for the sound to be better.
I absolutely agree. But the only thing that's worse than like adding in, like not having a crowd at all, is adding in a crowd of like 2 people. So it's balance.
Yeah.
All right, so in this game, right, the early pool didn't really do very much. Just didn't even really like respond that harshly to it, figuring that it probably wasn't going to be a big deal, and it wasn't. The robotics speed was scouted, and it was so fast that I think Caleb definitely read into that as being a disruptor drop, so that Spore Crawler was like in really prime anti-warp prism position. But then does he know about the follow-up, right? That's like the biggest thing here. He hasn't scouted the gateway. I think he
saw
barely
the middle of the map there. No, he had a ling on the high ground that saw it move through, so he does know it's coming.
Nice.
But does he have enough time to stop it? He is doing nothing but making units right now, and that's definitely the way to go. Caleb's got +1 attack on these lings, which helps him, I guess, against the gateway units, but against the Colossi, not so much. And the force fields, of course. Plenty of force fields here for DisK.
I mean, it looks like Caleb was already expecting an attack like this. Like, he cut drones, not for the disruptor, right, but for an attack that would eventually come, and he was absolutely correct. So this could still go well for him. It's only 1 disruptor, so now that it's gone, you can safely kind of move in here. And 1 Colossus really isn't that much damage to the Roaches and Ravagers, but of course the Lings, it is a ton.
Yeah, and speaking of which, it did absolutely cleave through that ling count here of Caleb. Caleb is making a lot more Roaches and Ravagers here, and that's definitely what he wants against this army, even though he has invested in +1 attack against the Lings. I think the Colossus and the force fields make that so unattractive. And force field there connects with a couple of Roaches, which is always nice. The Lings coming forward. And the Lings do actually do that job of grabbing the fire of the Protoss army and leaving the Roaches and Ravagers out of there. Colossus nearly goes down, but nice pick up micro there from DisK to keep it alive. And he gets a little bit too close to the sun. Takes it back. Eats a bile there and a couple Stalkers.
Yeah.
Very touch and go moment here.
Very scary. At least the Ravagers have lived so far. That can often be what it comes down to, because you can hopefully replace the Roaches, but...
Oh, Spore Crawler! Oh, Spore Crawler! All those vitals, oh my god. Losing that Observer was actually huge here. Like, the Colossus is giving him some high ground vision, but he doesn't have, like, pre-warning of whether or not a Zerg army is about to collapse on him without the Colossus being at the front line, and he really doesn't want it on the front line.
Yeah, exactly. Disruptor should have another shot to start things off. It's going to
it's a
get
good one.
And another building Ravager.
Womp womp.
Yeah, I think it's what's gotten like the last 3.
As long as the disruptor connection's doing damage, I guess that's always nice. But it is starting to get closer and closer to comfortable here for the Zerg. Lairs just started. Oh, nice force fields.
Yeah.
I like this rotation here by DisK. He is eating a lot of these biles though. It's kind of standing in the fire.
Little bit there, yeah. There was kind of awkwardness on both sides. You know, Caleb was very quick to react, but then realized there would be so many force fields, so a lot of his army got cut off. And I hear that he's running too low
5 roaches
on those roaches to protect the Ravagers. And the stock count has just been growing, by the way. So now that's like a huge issue.
There are some industries out there, not ones that I recommend viewing, but they're on the internet where they would have called that the money shot. And that was actually probably a game-winning connection there, as the roach count really isn't there anymore for Caleb. He's got mainly Ravagers and Lings now, which is a very squishy army.
Yeah.
And I think things are spiraling out of control here, and the Protoss is in poised position to be able to take... Oh, speaking of money shots! That's a money shot part 2 right there for DisK. And I think this is going to just end shortly.
Yeah, these are non-upgraded stalkers, but yeah, they'll just move out of the way of any corrosive biles. They could actually probably take the corrosive bile shots and still win. There's just so many of them.
Backslash dance in those bile shots.
Probably good. DisK is going to win this game. Caleb just, I feel like his opener just didn't set him up well to deal with this type of push, right? Like he acknowledged the push was on the way. He cut his drones. He didn't go in a lair very fast at all. Like that's all great, but he went for +1 melee. And it was the Lings that Colossus was like specifically going to be good against. So they really didn't get to like use that upgrade too often. Here maybe a little bit more because Colossus is dead, but is that really going to take care of the 20 army supply that Caleb was up against?
No. And as soon as this Prism feels comfortable, it's going to warp in more units. Here we go. Some Zealots coming in, which I love because of the Lings. Stalker and Prism does go down finally. Does DisK have enough here to actually seal this deal? He's making another War Prism back at home. He needs to start getting, I was going to say, get up on the high ground, whether at the 3rd or at the natural, and it's going to be the natural. Ooh! Caleb not looking for a second and loses a few Ravagers. And again, any army supply he loses these Disruptors is going to be devastating. Being up in this natural is also devastating. He's right in the reinforcement path here. He's on top of those reinforcements of the Zerg coming straight out of that natural hatchery. The Roaches are evaporating. The Ravagers have to go up the high ground. Caleb says, very sick play. Good luck. Caleb has been knocked out by DisK.